What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Discography Discussion. My name's Dan. I'm here pretty much on every video, so, there's that. You guys don't care about me. Joe's here to co-host, and we have a very, very special guest for you tonight. We have the Dean of Nu Metal himself, Lorin Kozlowski of the Roach Koach podcast. How you doing tonight, Lorin?
Doing great, doing great. Always happy to talk with you guys, and especially for talking about my beloved Filter. Always
hail ready. The Dean of Nu Metal.
Thank you.
I don't know if the title of Dean is that royal.
It is now.
Okay, well, fair enough. We have a really fun discussion for you guys tonight. Mostly because, honestly, I really hadn't listened to that much Filter growing up. I didn't have the history with them that everybody else did, other than Short Bus, which I had to listen to every day for weeks and weeks at a time. Whenever I was younger, because I was doing a paper route with a guy, and we were rolling up all of his papers, and he only wanted to listen to Short Bus.
Wait a second. You delivered papers?
No, I didn't deliver the papers. I rolled the papers up and put them in sleeves, and then somebody else that didn't have to listen to Short Bus delivered the papers.
That explains all the holes in the plastic.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. we were listening. We were listening to Filter. We were angsty. One thing led to another, and you ended up with a lot of very angrily rolled newspapers. But I have to say that after listening to the discography, I definitely had a very different impression of the band from what the band actually was, like whatever my daily impression was. So, but that we'll get into all that.
I remember listening to Filter when they were on the radio because I didn't have enough money to buy the albums I wanted and the Filter records. But I do remember many times Dan calling out Filter as that band that nobody talks about. Like, that was your underground sensation before you were talking about Zayo 24/7, 366, or 365, depending on what year it is. And it was always, it's like Nine Inch Nails, but it's not Trent Reznor's loop collection. And that was your big selling point. I didn't say it was one of your best points, but that was the message that you gave to everybody. I think you were just calling out Filter to be like, I'm hip. Even if you don't believe it, because I listen to Filter. I don't listen to Radiohead. That's too old school for me.
I listen to Radiohead and Filter.
He admitted it.
Yeah. It's fine. I'm not worried about it. Maybe music was a coolness contest when I was like 13, but
it was.
Now I don't care. Filter, Radiohead, Nine Inch Nails, you name it. It was all my jam. But really, only Short Bus was my jam. Like, that's all I knew, and I'd be like, oh yeah, because it was one of those things where you hear something from a band, and then you say. Somebody's all like, oh, yeah, you ever heard of Filter? And you just kind of look at him real sly and you go, yeah, Filter. You may not actually know, but you pretend like you know. So Short Bus was about it. And we were probably listening to that after it had been out for several years. So I really didn't know what I was talking about back then. But the guy that probably has the best perspective on Filter, Lorin, what got you into Filter?
Well, definitely hearing Hey Man, Nice Shot. I remember it got played on the local radio station all the time, and I really became like ubiquitous. It was used in this pretty famous episode of The X-Files that Jack Black was in with Giovanni Ribisi. I think Giovanni Ribisi has like electrical powers or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
callbacks.
Yeah. And so I remember just hearing that song a lot, and then I believe someone lent me Short Bus, and I remember listening to it on a family trip and thinking this thing rips. This thing is something else. And then they made their various soundtrack appearances the next couple of years, the Spawn soundtrack, this Crow City of Angels soundtrack. I think they were on an X-Files soundtrack too, with the cover. And so when Title of Record dropped in '99, I was like, let's fucking go. Yeah. All right. The boys are back. And then Title of Record was a huge record for me. Very, very excited when that came out. And I listened to that to death. And then I really kind of just stuck with them over the years and just kind of following the whole Richard Patrick sort of ups and downs of it all. There was on re-listening, it was very interesting to see where my opinion sort of shifted on some records that I felt kind of calcified a little bit. And so there were some surprises, a few disappointments, but overall a pretty satisfying listen overall. And I definitely think like there's some obvious peaks. And reading through some of the background and the making of some of these albums, it was interesting to see, you know, where Richard Patrick was sort of letting someone else kind of hold the reins versus when he was really taking control, and how that sort of ends up playing out. And I don't really have an overall thesis of like this works for him versus this doesn't. There is more of just like, this time it worked, this time it didn't, and next let's get him back in the booth again and see what he does next time. But more than anything else, I think it's a very fun listen. And when the guy's when he's in the pocket and he knows what he's doing, it's the best stuff. It's just the best stuff. And the thing that's funny is that the Nine Inch Nails comparison is interesting because he's obviously from the band, and obviously like the interest level of like why he was in Nine Inch Nails as their touring guitarist definitely played into, you know, why he was in the band and then what he took out of it. But they don't really line up 1-to-1, because I can listen to Nine Inch Nails and be like, yeah, this guy's a genius. Like, he's just got like genius shit. And
absolutely.
And I listen to Filter and I go, this guy's a very good songwriter, and he definitely has an interesting style, but he is not a genius. And it's okay. It's okay that he's not a genius. I think sometimes there's this feeling that everybody needs to be like the best. You listen to the best band. This guy's a virtuoso. It's like that. Just sometimes being pretty good and just rolling through life, being pretty good is a-okay.
That's definitely a theme that we're going to be revisiting too, because I think that what you just said about being pretty good consistently is something that I've seen a lot of geniuses screw up. You know?
Yeah.
And you know, like we'll get into it when we talk about the records, but consistency is kind of the word of the night. You know, this is I never thought I would say this about Filter, but they kind of are a sure thing.
Yeah. You really know for the most part what you're going to get with each record. There are a few like moments that diverge, but for the most part, it's pretty rock solid. And when they kind of screw something up, it's more of like more than often than not, it feels like they're attempting to recapture something that they did before, and it's like you can't catch it twice.
Yep. Yeah, I've got a very specific example of that when we get to it. We're probably the same one everybody does, but before we get into it, though, I would like to read a couple of comments in reference to our episode on Incubus that we just released. Well, before the Skindred one. Skindred's out already, but yeah, as of the recording of this. Sorry, guys, I've been out of it for a little bit. I had COVID for a week, and I'm just slowly easing my way back into the world. So forgive me here. But in reference to the Incubus episode, Jake Latimer says, after Morning View, it was all over. Fungus is so underrated. Wholeheartedly agree. Well, I don't know, though. You can't that's leaving out A Crow Left of the Murder, which I think is better than Morning View. But you know, we talked about it already. I can let it go. Lee Rydberg says, I'm down for these hot takes. I wonder if that was before or after you listened to the episode, because I don't necessarily think that we said anything that would have been all that different than the general Incubus fan base, because we're part of it, you know. So
I had the big hot take where I said Morning View is not an album that I enjoy, but beyond that, A Crow Left of the Murder is most people's jumping off point, I've found, with a few exceptions hanging on for light grenades. But you're absolutely correct. Fungus Among Us, those songs, it's extremely underrated. It is astonishing to me how many Incubus fans have not really sat down and listened to Science, and how many really haven't listened to Fungus Among Us. I'm not saying that they're the most defining songs of that band, but they are completely underrated explosions of energy and insanity that must be consumed. And you are fooling yourself if you think Incubus is that pretty band that wrote Drive, and that's all they are. Because they definitely are that. But they did some batshit things along the way.
so you're saying that if you're going to listen to Science, you have to listen to all 26 minutes of Calgon?
At least once, yes.
Okay. Well, I did that. I don't think I'm going to do it again.
You've been doing it for years. Shut the fuck up.
Ryan Rowe says, I think I know like 2.5 of these albums, and I only recently tried Crow Left because the song was featured on Letterkenny. Well, I mean, we all have our own reasons why we end up checking a band out. So hopefully he checks out some more. Hopefully he likes it. I don't know. As long as you like the episode, buddy, that's all I'm here for.
There you go. There you go.
And let's see, we had a comment on YouTube about John's episode about him. Episode
hey, stupids, we were there too.
Oh yeah, we were there. So in reference to episode 218, the band Him, not an episode about John. Satanic Puppy Overlord says, unironically love this band. LMAO. It's so out of left field for my tastes. And I got to say that I pretty much agree with that statement. It's very out of left field. I still wouldn't say that it really fits into the realm of my tastes. I mean, John's not here, so he can't defend himself. But let's just say I'm really glad that he took front and center on that episode.
That's a band that I've only really ever seen represented by shirts. I don't think I've ever heard a song.
Are you saying you haven't heard Rip Out the Wings of a Butterfly, Lorin?
No, I'm 39 years old. I absolutely have not heard that song.
Absolutely not. I hadn't heard it either. I don't think I'd listened to a single Him song before we did that episode. And then I listened to all of them and predictably said almost nothing throughout the entire episode.
What is Him an acronym?
His Infernal Majesty.
All right, I'm done with this guy.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. If the band was straight up called His Internal Majesty, I would have at least checked it out.
Oh,
if I hadn't heard that, yeah.
What's his hurry? Why is it? I got to be him. I'm in a hurry. I got places to be. I'm him. Ask me later what it means.
Well, there was a period of time too where they changed the name to Her I think it was when they came over to the U.S. This is all information I didn't know like 6 months ago. But here we are. They changed their name to Her because I guess there was another band called Him that existed. So then you've got like the Battle of Hymns, and they're just like, yeah, we're just going to go with Her. And then it's no longer does the Infernal Majesty really register.
Well, there is a group called Her. They've won like a bunch of Grammys, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's getting more and more strange as we go along with this very simple acronym, Lorin.
All right.
Well, let's get off of Him. We did that already. That's an episode that exists out on the internet that you can go listen to. John will tell you all about it.
Well, before Dan tells us that the only way is the wrong way, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, twitch.tv/DiscussMetalDan for all your game streaming and live recording needs. So if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening, and now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
Yeah, 5-star reviews. Leave us a review if you can. I think the only podcast app that you can leave us a review on is Apple Podcasts. I don't think I've even seen a review button or a starred system or anything like that. So if you want to leave us a review, do that. If you want to tell us, we're doing a great job, you can send us an email, danandjoeshow@gmail.com, or you can send us an email about any displeasure that you have for the show. I don't need to tell you that. I've never needed to tell anyone that. You guys know where to reach us. And but one of the best things that you guys do for the show is share the episodes. I love getting my post deleted from Facebook groups for reposting a show that one of you guys has already posted in that group. It's just a good problem to have. So I really appreciate it. And keep them coming.
Lorin, what's going on the Roach Koach?
Oh, wow. Well, let's see. When is this going up?
Sometime in the middle of June.
In the middle of June. Okay, so in the middle of June, we'll be celebrating another side project summer. So we'll be doing side projects, and I believe the first side project that'll be up, this might be a spoiler, but I'm not going to look at my schedule. I'm talking to you guys. But the first one that'll be going up is we'll be doing Shifty Shell Shock's solo record, which is called, I have it right here behind me. It is called Happy Love Sick. We did a whole episode on that, and we got a few episodes. We got a bunch of episodes in the tank right now, as Jenny is on maternity leave, and I can say I haven't edited them all yet, but when we recorded them, they were great. And so, so I hope everybody can check those out and enjoy those, and let us know what they think. But we're doing we're gonna do a bunch of side project albums this summer, and provided there's no delay in our recording, we've got a bunch more new metal to cover for you guys, as we always do. We have so many great recommendations that keep coming down that blow our minds, that I have to go online and, against my better judgment, buy the physical copy because I can't help myself. And lots of great new metal to come, some wonderful side project stuff. I can tell you, I won't say what band it is, but the last episode we recorded before Jenny went on maternity leave was a particular side project that we had been eyeing, and it was a whole lot of fun to do. And it was a pretty wild time, and so you know us, it's new metal all the time. New metal, I don't know if you guys have heard, is back. Limp Bizkit is playing Lollapalooza. All right, so it's back. It's back. Mudvayne is back. Korn is touring with Stained this summer. You guys, new metal, it is back. And if we had even a 0.0% impact in making it happen, happy to help. So
Gabbermedia.com/Roach Koach. That's Coach with a K.
Thank you.
Is there any other kind of coach?
Not that I'm aware of.
I haven't used the actual term coach for its actual meaning probably in like 2 years. So when I hear the word coach, it's Roach Koach.
That's it.
You can't pay for that kind of association.
You can't, and we're not. So there you go.
Perfect.
Gentlemen, who wants to tell me about Filter?
I'm going to give that over to Lorin.
Oh, boy. Well, Filter, Richard Patrick, Brian Lee's gang got it all started with Short Bus in 1995. And, originally, Richard Patrick was the touring guitarist in Nine Inch Nails. He is the mentioned Piggy on the Downward Spiral. That song is about Richard Patrick. And he went off on his own to form this band with Brian. And so they put out Short Bus, Hey Man, Nice Shot, the first single, the single that Richard's going to be eating off this song forever. I believe it's still in at least one movie trailer a year. And this record, I guess we'll just start in on this record.
Yeah.
It stands the fuck up. It is of the era. It definitely sounds like the middle of the 90s, production-wise, and a lot of the sounds. But the songs are here. It rips. And every time I go back to it, every time I go back to this record, and I've been listening to this record since 1995, and I think, have I underrated this record? It's really good. But every time I go back, it's really good. Dose. I mean, Hey Man, Nice Shot into Dose into Under. What a 1-2-3. What a 1-2-3. So yeah, this was going back to this thing, always a pleasure. This mix of, I mean, it's funny is that the whole industrial tag on it is there, but really, it's alt rock, baby. It's alt rock.
It's that weird mix that I only remember from the 90s, where we had alt rock mixing with a little bit of that electronic sound that we got from Europop. So it wasn't exactly industrial. It was like melodically enhanced alt rock. But this came out in 1995, and it very much does sound like Nine Inch Nails, just not as Trent Reznor aggressive. A little more laid back. I could see a fan of Radiohead being into this because it's a little more extreme, but it is extremely atmospheric and it gets the job done. It reminds me of listening to those songs on the radio when you had an alternative station that actually played alternative music.
I don't know if I agree that it sounds like Nine Inch Nails all that much. I mean, other than the fact that the sound might have been a little bit cosmetically similar because of what year it was, I think is really the only similarity I hear. It's I don't know. I would say this record for me is, I remember it so well just being, number one, just being in a garage, the entire time, listening to it echo off of the walls. But
rolling newspapers. It
was just a very, I don't know, like a chunk of dirt that's been broken off. Like it's very hard. In my opinion, it's probably the angstiest Filter record out there. It's certainly I don't want to say it's the heaviest because there are some pretty some ball busters on title record, but I don't know. This record just to me just seems very dingy. It's like the Cantina in Star Wars. It's just a very lived in. Reminds me a lot of Dust for some reason, and I can't shake that. And Ink. But what I really like about this record though is I like that it is subdued aggression, if that's a word that people use. It's certainly angry. It's certainly pissed off, but it's done with a finesse that I kind of feel like a lot of bands really couldn't capture. Bands could either just be all angry or all soft, like all happy feelings or all sad feelings. Short Bus makes me feel a variety of different things, be that anger, frustration, or just hopelessness, which is weird because my favorite song on Short Bus is So Cool.
Interesting.
And I don't know if it's just because like I had to listen to the record so many times that I was just happy once we had gotten to the end, and you might get like a solid 5 to 6 minutes where the dude didn't go over and hit the play button again on the record, or get out a different record and put it in, because this is old school. You had to, he's like, I don't want to walk all the way out to my car and get my CD case. That's what he used to always say. So we just listened to Filter the entire time. But I like So Cool because it sounds different than the rest of the record. It kind of gives a little bit of a melancholy, melodic sort of vibe. And I've consistently been into stuff like that throughout my life. I think that's why I got really, really, really into stuff like Sunny Day Real Estate and stuff, because it was very melodic, but also kind of hopeless sounding. And they definitely elicit that emotion throughout this record in multiple places. But they do it a little bit differently on So Cool, and it just stands out to me on the record. Obviously, besides the acclaimed hit single "Hey Man, Nice Shot," which it obviously is an unfuckable with song.
It's a good way to put it. Good way to put it. The thing is with this album, it always feels of a piece with the first Foo Fighters record, because they both came out at the same time, and they seem to have, I don't know, just similar production choices. I I mean, this could just be nostalgia ears talking, but these are just two records that I remember at the time hearing something like whatever Exhausted off of Foo Fighters, and then something like So Cool, and just feeling they both had this sort of like distorted, with everything. And then when you realize that it's basically Foo Fighters record is one guy doing everything, and this record is largely two guys doing just about everything. But then when you read in, it sounds like it's mostly Richard Patrick with a little bit from Brian Leisgang. And so there is, still sort of these like small armies making these records. But I mean, as a debut, I mean, having the Monster single helps a lot. And I think what was able to carry this band for 4 years during all the various internal, struggles that they had to get to 99 for title of record was that they dropped so many killer soundtrack cuts that just kept everybody hyped. Because I know you guys don't talk about EPs and stuff like that, but Jurassitol.
Don't do this to me, Lorin.
Jurassitol. I'm just saying, that's the type of thing you drop, and everyone goes, "We ain't done with Filter. When's that next Filter record coming?" Because Jurassitol, I just fucked my shit up. So, yeah. Strong start from the boys.
100%. And it's definitely a record I'll probably never listen to again, if I'm being honest. But
it sounds like you have just too much trauma related to it, man.
It's not trauma.
Yeah, it's trauma. If they were playing any record every day for a whole summer, you said?
Yeah, 2 summers.
2 summers?
Yeah, I came back for more.
And he was still like, Filter baby every day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dan, how did you not murder this man?
So I didn't make it through the entire second summer. I failed to mention that. So I made it about halfway through. And then, so it's more like a summer and a half, I guess. But basically, I just threw down all of his papers and walked out in the middle of all of it. That had nothing to do with Filter.
But for the sake of this podcast, we're going to say it does.
Yeah, print the legend.
Yeah, very fine. Yeah, it's like Alice Cooper. I did bite the chicken's head off on stage or something like that.
Yeah, we'll print the legend, and then we'll tie it up and put it in a bag and have it delivered out.
Perfect. All right.
Are we ready for title of record? 1999.
So it's like a sarcastic name, right? For a record.
It's definitely a situation where, I can hear Richard Patrick in an interview, and he might have even said this, where they're just like, they asked us for a title and we said, what's in the place now? Title of record, perfect. Yep, that's the one. I mean, even the way, they've got the barcode on the front, all the stuff that normally would be tucked away in the back of the record is on the front of the record. Subversion. So I'm just going to say this record rips. It's incredible. And I noticed you've got up here the images from the reissue, the 2020 reissue, which, what a gift to have all of the songs on title of record, and then it follows up with Jurassitol and Can't Trip Like I Do. Incredible gift. This thing is I think this is the best side A of any Filter record. I mean, all the way up to Take a Picture. I mean, that's a run. What a run for this band. And not to say that like the second half is bad, but I mean, that's more with the slower stuff. Skinny, Cancer. I'm not the only one, but also you got I Will Lead You in there, which is a top 5 Filter track. And then it closes with Miss Blue. It's great. Production on this record, incredible. Ben Gross did co-production with Richard. That guy knows what the fuck he's doing. Sounds monstrous. It hits in all the right ways. It's plenty of texture. This is prime stuff. I love this record. All-time record for me. How about you guys?
I love how this record opens. Everything that you said about the last album reminding you of the first Foo Fighters and it having that 90s sound. When I think of the 90s, I'm thinking of post-grunge, grunge, alternative, new metal in its infancy. I'm hearing the mids are scooped out. Everything sounds a little boxy, but it's not a bad thing. It just has this sound that I don't think has been duplicated in recent years. And when I hear this album start, the guitars are a little bit shaky. They're not clean. They sound a little too loose when they're playing those notes on those strings. And then the digital drums come in with the regular acoustic drums, and then that atmospheric voice. And I'm right back at 1999 when I was trying to write music, and I didn't have access to all the tools. So here's my song ideas with fully fledged out guitars that are just a little too stringy. And then, yeah, the drums are fake because I don't have a drummer. And it just, something about that combination for me just reminds me that 1999 was a completely different year for music on the radio. And I don't know a better way to go back to the 90s than this album by Filter. Because if it's not this, it's Significant Other by Limp Bizkit. We're back in the 90s. I love it.
So I have a confession to make. I had not listened to this entire record ever at any point before we did this episode. And so to say that I was surprised by what I heard would be a massive understatement. I think I had heard Take a Picture, right? And I want to say I'd heard Welcome to the Fold. But so I heard the singles. Take a Picture set me up for an experience that I definitely was not going to get for the rest of for the rest of my experience, but it was a very pleasant surprise. My wife and I have been watching Bob Ross lately, and so it was a happy accident. I went into this record expecting the entire thing to sound like Take a Picture, and it's funny because I knew what Short Bus sounded like, but I didn't like when I heard Take a Picture. I didn't believe the DJ when he said after the song was over that was Filter, right? It just wouldn't connect the dots. It sounded way too different. And for some reason, I thought it was Guster for some reason when I heard Take a Picture. I used to actually think when I would make like tapes off the radio because I loved the song, so I would record it on the radio and I would write out my own track listing or whatever, and I would write Take a Picture by Guster next to it, which is really, really stupid. Like now as an adult, but that's just it's the kind of thing you did. This record is, in my opinion, 10 times the record that Short Bus was. All of the elements are in place. This record has an insane amount more of this record has way more dynamics to it than anything else that they had put out before. And they're going to kind of expand on that as time goes on. I think the hardest part about this record is I kind of feel like the rest of it was kind of a letdown, the rest of the discography. And I think that like this, that's not to say that the rest of the records are bad, but this one was just so good and really set me up with a really good vibe for like, oh, sweet. Because at first it was like, oh, God, I got to listen to Filter. And then it was like, I listened to this record like 2 or 3 times and I was like, oh man, I get to listen to Filter for the next 3 or 4 days, and so it ended up being a really good thing. It's Gonna Kill Me is probably my favorite song on the entire record.
Yeah, they do those vocal effects on there in the lead up to the chorus. Incredible. I mean, yeah, when I was in high school, that was, I remember cranking that up in my car and like looking at people like, get ready. You ready for this part? Here it comes. Yeah, this record, I think what also makes this one really stand out in the discography is that it has a perfect arc and it ends on a good song. There are subsequent albums where you're like, is the album done, but they're not done? What's going on here? And this one, Miss Blue, is a very good finisher, although it has that secret track of weird noises and demo stuff that they put in like 20 minutes after it, which,
It was the 90s, Lorin.
it was
we did this thing called hidden tracks.
I know. I love and respect the hidden track.
Did you do the thing where you flipped the disc over as soon as you bought it and looked to see if there was extra information in the middle?
No, I would never do that. What I would do is you put it in the CD player and then you look to see how long it is. And then you hit the program button and it tells you song lengths. And then you click through to see how long every song is. And then when you get to that last song and it tells you that it's like 27 minutes long, you go, got it. There's something hidden in there. and then the first listen, you just wait it out. You just put it on. Somebody knocks on the door, say, "Not right now. We're hunting for secret tracks. Come back later." And and then after you realize whether or not it's, in the case of Deftones Around the Fur, a beautiful gift of a bonus song, or in the case of title of record, just a bunch of noises and screams, and if you're feeling completist about it, you'll let it play out, but most of the time you just hit stop. And
what about the first time you listen to Nevermind and you hear Endless Nameless for the first time?
So let me tell you, I did not know about that for months. I would get to the end and then I'd be like, gotta go. And I just hit stop and move on. Had no idea, because that was like one of the first CDs I ever got. So I was at a cousin's house. I think my cousin was babysitting my sister and I. I brought my Nirvana Nevermind CD with me, put it in the CD player. We're listening to it while doing something, and it plays to the end. And then we're sitting there in silence. And then, oh boy, Endless. What is this? I had no idea. That's how I found out. Blew me away. We were like, what is this? What is this? Lorin, what is this? I'm like, I don't know. It's the CD. There's more to it than I thought.
Yeah, I used to fall asleep. That was my problem, is I'd always fall asleep halfway through a record. I still do that. And whenever you have a hidden, it's not so bad in the age of Spotify, because I can set my phone to just like turn the music off after like however long. But yeah, no, I would just let records go, and would usually get woke up to screaming because I'd listen to them in headphones. I used to have these really, really, really long this really long cord for my headphones, and I'd plug it into the stereo and I'd walk all the way like across my room and just let the cord be there. And I lay there in bed and listen. And yeah, and the weird part is that I didn't stop doing that. Well, after I'd been woken up, like, a half hour later to loud screeches or whatever. And it's largely probably why I have like nervous tics and stuff now. Like I'm just sure at any moment something's going to jump out and scare me.
It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a secret track.
It's a secret track. I mean, Incubus did it to me. We mentioned Calgon earlier. It's a lot of the same stuff there. Luckily, I didn't have title of record back then, so I did not get terrorized by Filter in that respect. But yeah, title of record was just, I mean, it's probably the most perfect Filter album in my opinion, in that it displays everything that the band has in their kind of musical grab bag. They pull it all out, they show it all to you, they put it back in the bag, it's over. And they're going to use all those elements again, but I think not as in profound of a way. At least for the first 3 or so records.
2002, The Amalgamate. Lorin.
Oh, wow. Well, let me tell you, I was all ready to go. I was like, when's the new Filter record coming out? And then their buzz was, it's coming this summer 2002. And, the country's still in recovering from 9/11. And I said, give me that new Filter record. Let's go. And I'm hearing the buzz about it. And they're doing interviews. They're talking about this tour they're going to do where you can enter the venue through the backstage and hang out with the band, eat pizza with the band. I'm like, this is going to be the summer of Filter. I'm waiting. Filter does a live performance of My Long Walk to Jail on, I believe, Conan. Tuned in for that. I'm like, look at these guys. They're looking as good as ever. Still rocking that all leather thing. Pick the record up. And then I think within a week, they've canceled the tour. Richard Patrick has checked himself into rehab. And the record's dead. They just let it go. That being said, this is one of the best Filter records. The thing is that it runs into the thing of it is trying to do title of record again. We got the same producer. Ben Gross is back. He's got the same band, all helping out with some co-writing. And you've got, you've got, I'd say 2 attempts at another, maybe 3 attempts at another Take a Picture with Where Do We Go From Here? The Only Way Is the Wrong Way, and Goddamn Me. I would say the problem with the record is that after Goddamn Me, you've still got, 15, 20 minutes of album left and not much of songs. World Today and the Fourth are basically just a lot of just boops and beeps and noises. That being said, though, tracks 1 through 9, rock solid. Some great ones in there. But at the same time, you can hear like You Walk Away, American Cliche. But you don't want to take it for granted. But at the same time, that is like Filter, like textbook Filter. We've heard them do these tricks before. They're good tricks, but we've heard them do those tricks before. Now, The Only Way is the Wrong Way. I think that's like super stellar, one of their best tracks. And Goddamn Me is also one of their best tracks. But it is one of those things where, in a properly promoted situation, this might have taken them over the top. Or kept them on the top. But as Richard Patrick has said, if he hadn't checked into rehab, he would have died. So you got to do what you got to do. So, yeah. So I think this one is, I'll give it a solid, real good. But not great.
I think if they had harvested the singles out of this more, like I said, yeah, he's in rehab, so they can't do any of that, right? And it's kind of a bummer too. And I don't know how involved their record label was in the actual like composition. I mean, all I can say is it's 2002, so they probably were pretty involved. Just because that's with a band at this level.
We need you guys to write another "Hey Man, Nice Shot."
Yeah. So I mean, you hear. Well, no, that I think they were. No, you need to write another "Take a Picture," and so they did that a few times. And I feel like those singles could have taken them over the top, because I remember Where Do We Go From Here being huge. I don't remember if that was the first single.
Yeah, it was the first single. This
is
the only one
it's certainly the most popular. It's certainly the most popular song on the record. But oh my God, listening to this again all the way through for the first time just several days ago, the transition from Where Do We Go From Here to Columbine is ridiculous in a good way. This was such a almost like a middle finger to if they were maybe forced to write more songs in the style of Take a Picture and to put a song like Columbine right after Where Do We Go From Here? Well, now we know where we go. We go ultra heavy in a way that I didn't think Filter had in them. And they're going to do this again a couple more times, even on later albums where I really wasn't expecting it. And so this is the filter that I really kind of latched onto as we go through this discography, where I was like, okay, so this dude gets it. Like as far as having very extreme dynamics between song to song. But he's also a really, really good songwriter. And so all of these elements combine into a record that isn't exactly the master stroke that Title of Record was, but because it was written in the same mindset, it was written in the same, I guess drug-addled mindset, I guess would have been the mindset that they were in. I don't know. It just, I don't have a lot to say, and I'm trying to stretch it out a little bit. But this record is, I think Lorin said it best. It's not as good as title of record, but still really good.
You know, the thing that's interesting for me about this record was when I was reading the reviews, all the reviews were like, you know, the rocking songs are fine, but we can get those anywhere. But songs like The Only Way is the Wrong Way and Goddamn Me, that feels very much just this band. Only they can merge those two sounds, and that's them at their best. And it doesn't feel like, and we'll get into it as we go through the rest of the discography, but I don't really think they ever really duplicated those heights ever again. I think they have some nice songs on some later records, but it feels like in that moment with that band was when they could achieve Take a Picture, The Only Way is the Wrong Way, these sort of perfect like rock pop mixes that don't feel too light, don't feel too heavy. They're just like right there in the middle. And you know, they could, I mean, if they gave us a whole record of those, wow, that'd be amazing. But I think there's still this sense that he needs to do these other rockin' things, which is fine. You got to follow your muse. You got to follow your muse wherever it takes you. This is also, I think, the beginning of the political-minded stuff that we're going to get from Richard Patrick. Have you guys ever seen Filter live?
I have not.
So Filter live is an interesting situation because it's a little like if someone said, hey, there's this band. They rip. You got to go see them. There's just a catch. The catch is the lead singer is your dad. That's it. But otherwise, they rip. I can't tell you. These guys rip. But your dad is the lead singer. Just want to stretch that real quick. All right, let's head on down. And so you go to see Filter.
Why do I feel like I'm going to have this conversation with Dan's kids at some point?
Yeah, you are. One day, you are. Listen, you guys see this band, but the lead singer, you're gonna recognize him. Literally, I've seen Filter twice, and both times I saw him on the Army or Anthems of the Damned tour and the Crazy Eyes tour, and the in-between banter is strained and a little awkward. And if you want to experience a little bit of this sort of try-hard awkwardness, look up any YouTube interviews with Richard Patrick. I think there's a few on like Loudwire that will hit you with an incredible amount of cringe.
Ooh.
And not in like he's not saying anything bad. He has that embarrassing dad energy. And I remember when I saw him in 2008, he's playing to a not very full room. I was enthusiastically there. I was like, Filter's here. This is exciting. And I remember they would intro songs and like the intro Take a Picture, and they were like, oh, I guess like girls like this one. I was just like, own the music. You wrote the song.
Yeah.
Don't hide from your song. But then when I saw him on the Crazy Eyes tour, we're in the midst of the Trump era. And so every between song statement was very politically charged, talking about all these things and don't let those motherfuckers get to you. And I could feel the whole audience being like, is he going to play another song? How much of this do we got to go through? Because I could feel half the audience was like, what are you saying about my guy? And the other half of the audience going, I agree with you, but now is not the time.
Right.
Now is not the time. I'm here for some deep cuts. This is too deep of a cut.
Richard. Hey man. Nice shot. Can we play that now, please?
Please
just play it. Just play
it. Yeah. So also opener on the Crazy Eyes tour, Orgy, who had clearly done a lot of cocaine right before coming out, because nobody wipes their nose that much during a 20-minute set. But yeah, so this album has Columbine, which is a song about Columbine. My Long Walk to Jail has that. American Cliché has like political meanings to it, and then it ends with The World Today and the Forest, so that you have this sort of, politically minded things coming in. But we're gonna hit it harder with the next one.
I'm feeling the struggle. I'm feeling the duplication from title of record, and I understand completely why that was the decision in 2002. The songs are not bad. They just don't hit the same way. I can hear somebody misguided trying to reach for the same feeling again, the same impact as everything that's been played up to this point. And not knowing about the rehab, I just thought this was, let's make that album again. Let's go for it a second time. Then 2008, Anthems for the Damned.
Indeed.
Quite the break between records. Not as much as some bands, Tool or Zao, but this is where I thought, like, okay, I just got done listening to the three classic Filter records, right? And then there's all this other stuff that I don't know about. This has got to be where they're going to start to suck, right? Like, it's got to be.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised that this did not suck. I don't think it's as good as, like, again, I don't think anything's as good as Title of Record, but it was consistently filtery enough for me to be all like, yeah, this is actually a pretty decent comeback record.
This record was interesting for me because I remember at the time, I think I was doing a podcast with a buddy of mine, like very fledgling, like 2-listener situation. And I remember when this record came out, was hotly anticipating it. I'd been following everything. I was just holding up my Army of Anyone CD. So, I was still on the Richard Patrick train, anything my man was doing. So it's like, okay, Filter's back, but the band's gone. All the guys, Gino Leonardo, all those dudes, they're off. They're gone. This one's basically Richard and a bunch of new guys. And when I saw these new guys, it was very weird because they all looked to be like around my age at the time. So it was like he basically hired like a bunch of people that were like Filter fans to be in Filter. And this record is produced by Josh Abraham. And Josh Abraham, he's a lot of new metal credentials on his resume, but he's notably the producer on a lot of those big Stained records. And when you have that in mind, and then you listen to this album, you're like, yeah, this is Filter, produced by the guy that did Stained. And
absolutely should work.
I think this record, Richard Patrick has said that he felt that he deferred too much to Josh, and you can tell because this record, it feels like it should really start taking off, and then it settles in instead. So any moment that it gets a ramp up, it then cools down. And it has just some weird choices lyrically. Soldiers of Misfortune, which was the single, that's a clunky. Just trying to say it. Soldiers of Misfortune does not roll off the tongue. It's not, and when you hear the chorus, you're like, this is a B-C chorus. This is not his best stuff. But then when you go through it, when you have songs like What's Next and The Wake and The Take and In Dreams, that shit's killer. But
The Take is incredible.
Take is great. In Dreams is a Wes Borland co-write coming from, I think it was a leftover bit of song from when they did the Underworld soundtrack. Is the what was that band called? The Drowning Well? Something like that? I don't remember. Yeah, something like that. But it was the super group. And so you've got some Wes on here. You have all these touches, but it's just a little muted. Only You, another soft one in that realm, but it has the Josh Abraham smear on it. So this whole album, it's funny, it looks kind of cloudy on the album cover with the desert and everything, and that's kind of how it sounds. It's through a sheen. It's not a bad listen, but
there's some Vaseline on the lens or something.
A little bit. It definitely you're getting it. And the thing is, I think, so yeah, if you go through the rest of these records, he doesn't let anybody, Richard Patrick doesn't let anybody sort of get in the way of his sound anymore. And I think the sound on every subsequent record is way brighter. I think this is the dimmest sounding of the of the Filter records.
I was surprised to hear it sound the way it does in 2008. I say this a lot when we discover these records that we didn't listen to back in the day because it wasn't on our radar. It wasn't the popular thing. It wasn't metalcore, so Dan definitely wasn't seeking it out. But then I hear something that sounds like 1999 again. I'm always shocked to find how much of that does exist, and I'm excited because it reminds me that that band you liked really never stopped making music. It's a lesson that the radio just stopped paying attention because we can play Hey Man, Nice Shot again. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with this record. Not as good as the previous by any means, but it has the riffs. It sounds like Filter. What more could you want, Lorin?
I mean, the funny thing is, when it came out, I was so ready that I remember telling somebody, "This is the best thing they've ever done. I love it. I love it." And then I sat with it for like a month, and this is back, prime CD era still for me. So I listened. I was giving it way more listens than I think I give things now, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I've got some issues with this one." But I remember this one came out also around the same time as Slipknot, All Hope Is Gone, which I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, they did it again. And then I listened to it a bunch more and I was like, they didn't do it again. This is not one of the best ones. So yeah, this one I think we'll get through, but I think this might be my least favorite Filter record. But we'll see. We'll keep going.
Well, yeah, and if that's the worst, I mean,
right?
You're pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If your worst sounding record is a perfectly listenable experience, just maybe not as good as what you had before.
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely talked about a lot worse. Looking at you, Mushroom Head.
Oh, shit.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
I haven't dragged Mushroom Head through the mud recently, so might as well take
a... Sounds to Joe like we're ready for The Trouble with Angels, 2010.
Well.
Here we are.
This is way better than the last record, in my opinion. I mean, the riffs actually cut through the mix on this one and actually sound punchy. I mean, Drug Boy really comes to mind. It's a very aggressive song and actually reminds me of kind of some of their more 90s material. But everything sounds like the production quality sounds so much more modern and in your face. This is where, like, the point in the night when I was listening, doing this home stretch, the last few Filter records, I was like, oh, guys, please don't put me to sleep. Please don't put me to sleep. And I found that this record, while still having its melodic moments, definitely kept everything a lot harder, consistently harder. Than really the last couple of records have, which would always kind of go for a more melodic approach. The Trouble with Angels, the song I found to be a little cringy with the vocal delivery at the beginning, but still like the song anyway. I don't know. I really love this record. Absentee Father, actually really liked. Lyrics seem very, very kind of sincere on the more personal songs. When he gets into religion and stuff, it's a little forced, I think. But yeah, I like this one. Solid for me.
I feel like The Inevitable Relapse is setting you up to remember what you love about Filter. Even the cover of the album, it's almost like a play on the albums from the late 90s and early 2000s. It's like the new Static X album where he's trying to remind us of the band that we really like. Not that the previous albums were bad, it's just we're trying to recapture that intensity of presentation. And it even has the same kind of kickoff. I don't know if he's intentionally writing songs that remind you of that, or if that's just the sound of Filter. This album needs the big opener, and the big opener is just going to sound like this. Somebody with a podcast is going to be able to compare this to Nine Inch Nails in some very small cosmetic way, and then we're off to the races, guys.
Yeah,
I really like the record.
He compares everything to Nine Inch Nails.
I was having this salad for lunch today, and I was like, heavy Nine Inch Nails influence on these croutons. Let me tell you, this record. It was funny. I remember very heavily anticipating this one. I was like, still ready to go. I did the pre-order and everything, so I got the deluxe edition here, which had an extra bonus disc. Which, because I'm a busy guy, did not actually get to listen to that one on my re-listen. But this record was better than I remembered. I don't think I thought it was necessarily bad or anything at the time, but I don't recall this being in heavy rotation. Like, I remember I got it. I was very hyped to get it. I definitely listened to it a bunch of times, but then I think it just kind of got filed away. But, you know, this is, he brought on Bob Marlette to produce. I think Bob did a great job. This is a lot brighter than the previous record. And yeah, there was just a lot on here that I was like, oh yeah, Catch a Falling Knife. That's a good song. Yeah. No Love. That's a really good song too. And 10 tracks, in and out, move on with your life. Can't beat that. So yeah, this was a nice reminder of the mid era, you know, had some bright spots. And so yeah, I thought this one was yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Once again, Filter, pretty good.
Yeah, I think that they really they fixed any issues that you would have had with the previous record, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the songs overall were a little bit less generic. It's hard for me to talk about music like this as non-generic, but like it's I don't know, the way they went about it on this record. This one really stuck with me through the listening. But honestly, they don't really go downhill from here.
No, not at all.
2013. The sun comes out tonight.
Yeah, it does.
The sun doesn't rise at night, sir.
So the funny thing for me on this record was I didn't really have I don't really have a strong connection to this one. I actually found that this was one of the few that I didn't have a physical copy of until like the last couple of years. I think I found it at a used record store. And I went back and I was like, why? What was going on in 2013 that this record just did not hit for me? And then I looked up when it came out. It came out in June of 2013. June of 2013, I was moving from Pittsburgh back to Michigan. And on top of that, you guys, Kanye dropped Yeezus. Sorry, Filter. You're getting overshadowed. You're getting overshadowed, baby. It's just how it goes. And so this one was, I'd say, the record I was least familiar with. I knew I'd listened to it at least a couple times. And it's got some really good ones on it that like fit in that perfect Filter wheelhouse. We Hate It When You Get What You Want. Surprise, once again, trying to play onto that take a picture vibe. You know, at the same time though, this one, it's rock solid, but it does feel maybe like a little generic, like it could be about anything or nothing at all. So I had a good time with it. I think it's rock solid, but I'd say like it's mid-range for the band.
It definitely has that generic feel that was happening in 2013. You nailed it on the head. The songs could be about anything. The first time I listened to this album, I got flashbacks to my darkest days being on the radio. Like, the songs are clearly written about one thing, but they don't really commit to any of it. They just make it as generic as possible. Then you find out that band was heavily influenced and produced by Chad Kroeger. So it all makes sense. I think it's interesting that Filter cashed in on that rock with over-the-top pop electronics from 2013 sound just to... I don't want to say that they were trying to maintain their standing, because I think if you're a fan of this band, you're here no matter what. But you're right, it's 2013. There were other albums that were coming out, and I think this one easily got overshadowed. I still don't think it's a bad album.
The other thing that's funny about this record is that this is a situation of back basically like two guys. This is Richard Patrick and Jonathan Radke on everything, and Bob Marlette's back producing. But it's it's once again basically just two guys, which is harking back to the first record. So, and here's the thing: if you want to see what the process is for each Filter record, just read through the Wikipedia for each album. Every album goes to like 3 different album titles, and there's an entire plan that gets scrapped. We're going to call it this one thing that doesn't end up happening. We call it something else. There's always something. I don't think any Filter record is not made under some level of duress. There's always something going on, which I think we'll get to. So.
Is it time for Crazy Eyes 2016?
Let's talk about it.
I've got my reasons, Lorin.
Let me tell you, this record, once again, I was like, let's do it. Filter, you're back. Let's go. This was highly anticipated. I believe this came out the same day as Gore by Deftones. And at the time, I was like, Filter fucking did it. They really did it with this record. They're back in a way I never anticipated. And I thought it was a better record than Gore. I think I still like it better than Gore. But on my re-listen, I felt this is just a very political record. As I said, the tour was an incredibly political tour. And I would say that you get weighed down by it and you're like, I get it. I agree with you. I get it. Let's take a break. And so it can be a little bit of by the time you get to Your Bullets, track 10, I'm like, I get it. I've been preached to. You're preaching to the choir. I got it. I'm all set. But I think, there's some really solid tracks on here. I think Nothing in My Hands is a top 10 Filter song. But at the same time, something like Welcome to the Suck is like a bottom tier Filter song. Like, just no thanks. It's just a slow one. And yeah, this one's fine. This is, I believe, sales wise, I think one of the least successful Filter records. I think it has like the lowest chart debut. And I definitely, on my re-listens, if somebody was like, okay, I've heard title of record, I've heard Short Bus, I've heard The Amalgama, where next? I think 5 years ago, I might have said this record, but now I probably would send them to Trouble with Angels. This was honestly the biggest surprise of my re-listen was that how not excited as I was for this record as I had been a few years ago when it came out. Not bad time, but I thought it was just okay. I thought it was just okay. So what about you guys?
Well, despite me not being able to look at the cover without puking, there's just something really odd about that I can't quite put my finger on, and I don't really want to. Yeah, but it didn't stop me from listening. Welcome to the Suck. Yeah, not great. But I don't know. I thought this record was kind of really in line with the last record. I feel like kind of at this point, other than it being an outrageously preachy record, and like I don't really even like. I don't know. It's frustrating for me, kind of like Lorin said, like whether I agree with you or not, I don't need you to repeat it over and over and over to me. And for a while, that's fine. If you want to do it at a live show, I'm probably not going to go see the band live, so I don't really care. But this record was a little bit, a little too in your face for me. But musically, I think that it was a bit of a step up from the last record. But honestly, by this point in the discography, I think they're just kind of doing the same things over and over and over again. I like that it's more upbeat. there's not as much like slow, like, I don't know, acousticy, you know,
Yeah.
what I used to call, like, I don't want to say like college rock, but just the kind of stuff that you listen to at a party in 2001. You know, they're the best at that style, honestly. But I don't know. I appreciated this record being solidly crunchy, but the lyrics really more or less turned me off, and that's even with me not like disagreeing with them.
Yeah. It makes its point. It makes its point again. It keeps making its point, and you're like, I'm all set, man. I'm all set. I agree with you. Can we anything else? The topic, any other topic? If
could have made a Twitter post, man.
Yeah.
Could have summed all this up in a Twitter post.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe, what'd you think of this one?
At the risk of comparing it to Nine Inch Nails, I feel like the band is grasping on to that political message, and then they're trying to make something that is mentally disturbing so that you'll listen to what they have to say. It's in many ways the most old school sounding Filter album. But then there's that message, there's that reason that the album exists. I'm having flashbacks to Ministry.
Yeah.
No matter how much you need me to hear your opinion on this topic, this is one time I agree with Jeff. I don't want politics in my music. I just want to listen to my music. On the other hand, dude wanted to write about this. This is what inspires him. Go for it. I just might not listen to it a second time because I don't need this message driven down my throat again.
I think the other thing is that once again, it has big preachy dad energy. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people I can listen to who their music is entirely. There are 3 Rage Against the Machine records that I have no problem listening to that are way preachy, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But it just has this dad energy that gets just, you're all set. And so this is the last Filter record to date currently. They have been attempting to put a record out for the last, 3 years.
What's it going to be called, Lorin?
Well, so initially it was going to be called Rebus as a sort of sequel to Short Bus, because it was originally going to be a reunion record of Richard Patrick and Brian Lace Gang. They had gone together to see a Veruca Salt show, the 90s baby. And at the Veruca Salt show, I believe Louise Post of Veruca Salt knew they were there. And of course, all these 90s bands, they all know each other. They're all touring together, high-fiving in the green room. And Louise Post called them out from the stage and said, you guys got to put these, whatever issues you got behind you, get back in the studio, make a Filter record. It's what the people want. And they said, you're right, let's do it. And so they said they were going to get back in, and they put a big thing together on Pledge Music. And anybody who follows Pledge Music knows that that turned out to be something of a pyramid scheme, and it all fell apart. And I donated to it, and I didn't get my $40 back. I know some people who are very upset to this day about how this was all handled. They felt that the band should have refunded them the money, what have you. And because what ended up happening was they were kind of giving updates, but then it seemed like a full record had been made, but then it was like, no, there's like a song or 2 songs.
Yeah.
And so then there was this question of like, did they just sit on the money? What did they actually do with all the money? All this stuff. When it seems to me, based on articles I've read with guys from Failure and other bands, that they just didn't get any money. Like the money was all gone. It all went to the company and they never saw any of it, and they couldn't refund anybody if they tried. And what I feel, but then after that, when asked in an interview, where's Brian now? Richard's like, I don't know. He could be somewhere. He's gone somewhere. And if I had to guess, the reason that there aren't going to be any or so few songs on whatever this new Filter record ends up being from this re-collaboration between the 2 guys is I have a feeling that once they got back in there together, the reasons why they weren't together in a band propped up again. And Richard Patrick was like, I mean, Richard Patrick's been the main guy for what? 25 years? 20 years?
He is Filter. Yeah.
He's Filter. So the idea of him, you know, conceding anything to somebody else seems kind of unlikely at this point.
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, I mean, the big push on it is like, obviously they would have moved more units if it was like the original lineup of Filter back together. You know, you'll move some more units there. You'll get some people. You run the nostalgia tour on that and what have you. But ultimately, didn't pan out. And so then the line was that the record, it was going to be a different record. And it was going to be called "They Got Us Right Where They Want Us at Each Other's Throats." So that was the line for a while. Then that got punted. And now the word on the street is that the album is going to be called Murica, which is the worst title they could have picked. And they've released a single for it, which is called, let me find it. I think it's called Thoughts and Prayers. There's 4 songs listed as possible tracks for this album. Murica, Thoughts and Prayers, Command Z, High as a Motherfucker, and Come Take My Guns. This has a strong possibility of being the worst Filter record. And
it reads like a troll.
It does. And the one single that they put out, which is just, I think it might have come out like right before Election Day, but it's all about Trump and it's just terrible. And it's honestly one of the worst Filter songs I've ever heard. And so the fact that they haven't followed that up with a release of any kind, I mean, you could put that up to Pandemic, but I mean, maybe they read the room and realized this was not the way to go. So I don't know. We'll see. But all signs right now point to that he's decided to double down on all the political stuff from Crazy Eyes and really go all in, which could be a tough go.
And how was that not all in already on Crazy Eyes? It's just, yeah, that's the frustrating. I think Joe brought up Ministry, where we pretty much sat there for a half hour and had the same conversation where it's like, dude, do a different thing now. Like, you know, it's like that little kid with a stick poking, come on, do something, you know? And I think, yeah, you're going to put out a record called America in 2021 or 2022. And you're kind of late to the party on that. So yeah. I think the best thing the dude could do at this point is just scrap all of it and be all like, I'm just going to sit down and think about why I started making music, kind of get in that mindset again, and not so much how do I tie this into my personal beliefs? It's the Christian rock dilemma too.
Well, there was a critic I saw on Twitter who, in the middle of, I don't even say in the middle, I want to say in the early days of the pandemic, when everybody was pushing records back and that were already set to come out, and they were pushing them back like a month or a week or what have you. And I remember him saying, there are going to be bands that are going to be trying to push stuff back and not release stuff or push it to next year. He's like, those bands are going to be left in the dust because more than likely their music is like set for like right now and never any further. And they're just going to have to eat it. And there are going to be bands who are going to thrive in this moment and put out records that are going to define the year. And I think that largely did play out. Because I definitely think there were some records that came out. I mean, I love the 1975, but like their record, they pushed that thing back by like 2 months. And then when they finally did come out, when it came out, it was like and then they ended up canceling their whole tour and then said, we're just going to go back and write a new album. And it's like, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. Because that record it was doomed. It was doomed, you know? I mean, for every ohms, which I think defies the situation, and, you know, we're still going to be talking about ohms for years. There's a lot of other records the other way around. So, yeah, at this point, yeah, he should just call it a day on this thing and do a new thing.
Final thoughts on Filter, Dan.
I was pleasantly surprised with Filter. I thought I'd kind of had this band pegged as being a certain type of band. And I think sometimes they are that band I had them pegged as, but I got to stop saying the word pegged. Joe's going to end up having to bleep that, or YouTube's going to remove it from the algorithm. But I do think that I do think that, you know, like Lorin said at the beginning, I think that it's better that he's just all right. He always does a decent job. Like I said, none of these records are like at no point that I listen to any of these records and be like, oh, you know, like what, you know, why would you do? Well, maybe Short Bus, but for different reasons. But I think that like overall, the dude's got a really solid body of work, and it's kind of baffling to me how people don't really listen to Filter albums. At least people on streaming services don't. Because like I'm looking, because you know when you're listening to something on Spotify, you can see the stream numbers, and I know that's only accounts for a very small amount of years. But it is interesting to see, like if you're on Short Bus, you know, Hey Man, Nice Shot, 49 million streams. Everything else 368,000, 309,000. You know, way more streams than I get. Let me tell you. But it is one of those weird things where as I went through these records and I kind of started paying attention to those types of stats, I was like, people don't listen to Filter albums. They only listen to the singles. Or no, I mean, yeah, no, I should stick by that. Just that it was the singles. Take a Picture, 52 million streams. But, you know, a song that I think is equally, you know, it is just as cool. You know, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. 847,000. Still a lot of streams, but it is just weird seeing that drop off from the singles and all the other ones. And so I would say overall, I think that I probably will actually end up returning to a few of these records. The Trouble with Angels, most notably, I really enjoyed that one. Title of Record, which was kind of a new discovery for me. I'm the guy in 2021 that's like, have you guys ever heard this record called Title of Record by Filter? It's really incredible. You know, you guys should check it out. You know, and so yeah, I'd say overall, I mean, well done. I can understand why there are people that are lifelong Filter fans, because I think sometimes music doesn't have to change your life, but it can absolutely enhance, you know, your life. And I think that's a message that, you know, that maybe he needs to learn as far as music not having to change your life and change your perspective on things. Sometimes you just want to rock out. And I think for the most part, Filter gives us that.
I think Filter is one of the most consistent sounding old school bands. They've been around since the mid-90s, and they've been consistently delivering that sound, that vibe. Little bit of dirge on the guitars. The melody is there. We put the electronics in. It all works. It has that vibe overall. And when you get through the discography and you're still here, it's because you don't need the most extreme thing today. And other bands that have this same vibe can be a little too random. Yes, this band has those moments where they go on and make sounds for 20 minutes, but that was the thing back in the day. I'm going to let it go. If I put in any of these albums, I'm going to get something worth coming back to. And to me, that is one of the most important things when you're listening to a band that you like. I may not be the super fan. We're going to get to the Dean in a second. But I am definitely a fan of this band, and I think you should be listening to Filter. Lorin Kozlowski, I summoned the Dean of Nu Metal to get his final thoughts on Filter.
I got to say, you know, Filter, always happy to go back and listen. They've never really left my rotation. I would say some records haven't gotten as much play from me in recent years, but Title Record and Amalgamate, I'm still playing those guys all the time. And don't worry, Dan, I'm listening to full albums. You know, and I'm a full album guy till the day I die. Like, I will put on a playlist every now and again, and I'll be like, what's going on? What am I doing? What am I doing to myself? No, I got to pull that album out. Like, a song will come on that I know, and I know what the next song's supposed to be, and it's not. I'm like, something's wrong. Everything's off. I got to put an album on. So, I'm always going to be an album guy forever. And, you know, with Filter, you know, rock solid for the most part. And, you know, I mean, in my opinion, three classics in a row with Short Bus titled record Amalgamate. And it's one of those things like only when I'm like having to like really nitpick it, that I get down to like, hey, the last couple songs on Amalgamate kind of fall apart a little bit. And, Welcome to the Suck, not so great and what have you. But like you said, this was a pleasure. When you called me, you said, Lorin, I'm going to need you to listen to every Filter record. I said, done and done. Let's go. Pick a date.
You want to go right now? Yeah,
let's go right now. And you're like, I can't do it right now. I got COVID, but in a couple weeks. I'm like, okay, great, no problem. Yeah, recover, don't die. And here we are. And yeah, so this is, always a pleasure with Filter, always fun. And, I think I don't know if we were recording, we were talking about it's like Richard Patrick, not a genius. He just does a great job, just does a really good job. And you can't say that for everybody, Now, if the next record's a total stinker, just kind of throw everything off what we're saying right now. But right now, with the collected discography that you can fit, at least in my hand, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
Lorin, what's your album of the week?
Ooh, I knew you were going to ask me this, and I was like, oh boy, what am I going to say? Because I've been...
I've got these 7 Filter albums in my hand, and I can't decide.
I would say I'm gonna be super obvious here, and my album of the week is For Lovers by Death from Above, 1979. Their new record came out in end of March, beginning of April, I want to say, and it's another great one from the boys. Those guys are ripping it up as always, adding a little more electronic textures on this record, a few more soft boys. Yeah, but I love it, and they're great. They're one of the best bands of all time. A gift that we got this record. Another record. This record was done in 2020, and they said we're gonna wait for 2021. This thing, timeless. I love it. So, Death from Above. That's my pick.
Dan, what about you?
Well, I promise you are not going to be as generically you as I'm going to be generically me, but I'm going to have to go with The Crimson Corridor by Zao.
There it is.
I mean, another 2021 release. I think they avoided kind of some of those issues in that they've had this thing in the tank forever. I remember talking to Jeff, because I had Jeff on Discuss Metal like back in early 2021, and he was like, oh yeah, the new album's completely done. He's like, it's been done. He's like, we're just going through the artwork and we're, seeing how these reissues go. We're seeing how all this stuff goes. He's like, but it's completely done. And I'm like, just release it. And he's like, no. We got to release it at the right time. Well, evidently the right time was 2021, because this record is incredible. And it's not just because it's Zao and because it's me. This is not the very first time, but this is the very first time I've ever seen Zao be at number 44 on the Billboard. So they're doing something right.
That's right.
For me, I went back in time and I pulled out Wisconsin Death Trip and I just listened to it until it got old. And I gotta say, it did not get old. There is a reason that record is the standard to most fans of Static X, and I really enjoyed just going through it a few times. The heavy metal disco still fucking works, and I am not ashamed. I regret nothing.
It didn't get old for you, you say. Well, do you want to help me work on some newspapers starting around June? And it's okay. I've already got a copy of Wisconsin Death Trip, so we can just put it on and only listen to that.
If you need help putting papers together, Dan, I'll be there for you.
All right. Sounds good.
It'll be a lot better than what I was going to do and say, does anybody want to hang out and talk about the movie Short Bus?
No.
Thank God.
That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut right
God.
there.
Lorin,
gentlemen,
thanks for hanging out.
Hey, always a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me on. Long-time fan. Always a pleasure to be on here to talk about a group's records. And you guys are the best. So thank you.
You want to take us out, DFT?
I will take us out to the ball game whenever that's allowed. I don't know if ball games are happening or no. The Cardinals are playing.
They're back.
Anyway, Sorry, yeah, they're back. Okay, we're good. If you've ever been listening to this podcast and you would like to have a little bit more of a direct role over what bands we talk about, we got a very heated message on YouTube recently about a guy that was just straight up disappointed in our band choice. And I can certainly understand that, but there are a few ways that you can sort of influence what goes on with this show, and you can reach out to us through a variety of different avenues. You can reach out to us on Facebook at facebook.com/discography discussion. You can follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. You can find us on Instagram at discussmetal. You can send us an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. We have a Discord server. There'll be a link in the show notes for this episode that'll take you to our Discord server. And that's where we discuss the bands. We're talking about what bands we're going to talk about on the show, what other listeners' favorite bands are. The Discord server is kind of the place to be. If you like the show and like to support us on Patreon, you can certainly do that as well. There'll be a link to Patreon here. And we've actually just recently started doing monthly Patreon subscriber hangouts. Which have been a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun being able to sit down with you guys, get your recommendations, your thoughts, and if you love the show or you have grievances with the show or anything, I just like how open everybody has been about all that stuff. So it's really cool just getting able to hang out with people one-on-one. But yeah. So we've got it all. We've got merch. We'll have a link to our Teespring store that'll take you to all of our lovely merch that has our logo all over it, all kinds of items, coffee cups, cell phone cases, comfy socks, a comfy hoodie, which you're probably not going to need in the summer. So go ahead and go with that short sleeve.
And on that note, this has been episode 228 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Hey, Joe, can I have some money?
$1 a month gets you into that exclusive album review feed.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. This is the end of the show. Bye.